Hello, Montgomeryville, and also Hatboro Horsham. You're just going to do a brief explanation because that's really all that's required for making a power chord, what we call power chord. Power chord, quite simply, is the first and the fifth in any key. It's the first and the fifth degree of the scale of any key. If you take a look at this, and you're gonna have you refer to this as I speak, and this, which we'll get to, which is just a major scale, perhaps that chord sheet that I gave you, but in the power chord, where a chord consists of the first, the third, and the fifth. If you grab this right now, the first, the third, and the fifth, if I said, what notes make up an A chord, you just go down here in this yellow column that's marked 1, that's the root note, A, and then you go to the column marked 3, which is right next to the yellowed out column, and you follow that row of A, and you'll see that the third is a C sharp, and then you go to the fifth, which is the yellow column, and you go to that note, and you'll see it's an E, and you have just defined what an A chord is. If anyone asks what's an A chord, you say it's.
Hold it still.
It is a group of 3 notes that are, and those notes are A, C sharp, and E. That's it. That's all that. That's what an A chord is. What is a C chord? Doing the same thing, going down to C, going over to the column with 3, going over to the column with 5. You take the first, the third, and the fifth, and a C chord is a C, an E, and a G, as you'll see. Any note, any chord that you want down here, and they're the only major chords that exist, these 12, and you can figure out what those chords are. You can define what they are. That's the definition of it. What's an A chord? Somebody says an A chord, you don't have to get your smoking jacket and a pipe and a wax philosophical. An A chord is an A, a C sharp, and an E. That's it. That's what you need to know. Now, we have, particularly in rock and roll, we use often what's called a power chord, and that power chord is quite simply the first and the fifth. So a power chord for A would be A and E, an A note and an E note. That's all you need. That's a power chord. And if you want to know what it is for C, to be consistent, it's a C and a G. There's no E in a C power chord. There's no C sharp in an A power chord. That's it. You can try to make that difficult in your mind, but that's it. So to make a power chord, we're going to just use string 6 and string 5 to demonstrate, because that's the easiest. You can make a power chord anywhere along here just by playing the first and the fifth. And I'll just review that again. But first I'm going to say what are the notes. You need to know the notes, and the notes are easy on the E. They're easy to demonstrate. You have an E for an open 6th string, F, F sharp G, G sharp A sharp B, C, C sharp D, D sharp, and when you get down to these double dots, you're back to what you started with, E. So you've just played an octave. You played 12 notes in a repeat, and that doesn't say 8, but the 8 comes from what I gave you in the other, and this is very difficult for me to do. But, wow, made it. That is, we're going to get to that very shortly. That's this pattern, this formation of notes that you play. And that plays do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do. No matter where I play it, do, re, sounds the same, but I've changed the key based on the root note, which is the note that I start on. So, if I want to play the first and the fifth, how do I do that? The same formula all the way, anywhere on the guitar, is you play there's one change down at the string 3, but we'll get to that later, and you wouldn't use it down there anyway. So you have string 6, whatever note you're playing or whatever fret you're at, and I'm at fret 0, fret open here. I go back 2, I go south 2, and I hold that down, and then I bend my ring finger, hold it down with my ring finger for demonstration purposes here, and I deaden these strings underneath. Sounds like a winning proposition. A lot easier to do. Deaden those, and you're deadening them on purpose. So you would go, I'm playing an E power chord right there, and sort of sounds fuller in rock and roll because you're actually using this little percussive. It's like having a little drummer there, you know, while you're playing. So I just move that formation, just that formation here on string 1, index finger, string 6, fret 1, and ring finger now 2 south of fret 1, which is fret 3. It's always going to be in this formation. I'm deadening the strings below, and I have an F power chord. Move it down 1, F sharp power chord. Move it down 1, G power chord. Down 1, G sharp. Fret 5, A power chord. A sharp power chord. B power chord. C power chord. C sharp power chord. A D power chord. D sharp power chord. And E power chord. Again, 1 here, E power chord down here. That's it. You can choose to make it more complicated than that, but that's it. Whatever note your index finger is on, you go to the string below it, fret the string 5, move south 2 frets, come down here, and put your ring finger then 2 frets down, and you have, in this case, a G power chord. So if I wanted to play what's called a 1, 4, 5 progression, which would be, in this case, G, C, D, and that G is, I have my index finger at fret string, all on string 6. Everything's on string 6 that we're doing right now. String 6, fret 3, that's a G note. Move down 5 frets, that's a C note, and down 2 more, that's a D note. So I'm going to play a G chord, power chord, a C power chord, and a D power chord. So I wanted to play that progression, which, and I apologize, I can't make these chords now with my finger operated on here, but it would be a G, a C, and a D. G, C, D. I'm glad for power chords with my hands like this, because I can't play the regular chords, the cowboy chords. So it would be, that's a C, G, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, and a C, 1, 2, 3, 4, and a D, C, G, C, D, C, back to the G. That's just a demonstration of how I can play those power chords, and it sounds very much like the regular chords, and you're very used to hearing that from rock and roll. So let's get briefly to this. I gave you this, and that is this little formation. That's a pattern. You should be picking up a pattern here. That I say pattern a lot because that's very important to notice patterns in all the music that you're playing. Like I told you, it's organizing sounds into something that is pleasing, and we are generally pleased with patterns that make sense. And so these patterns, they make sense. That's do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do. I want you now to think of this as do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do. I want you to think of that as first, second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh, repeat. And what that means is you just played a major scale, and that major scale goes the first note in the major scale of A, and you can follow that right along here. Get down to A in column 1 and then follow across. It is A, B, C sharp, D, E, F sharp, G sharp, A. Right down that pattern. So we're only going to use string 6 and string 5 here. And I'm going to show you why that's a power chord. It's the 1st and the 5th is what I said. And here's the 1st in the key of A is string 6 fret 5. The 2nd is this B in the key of A, is this B. Right from that pattern, I'm just following this pattern, the pattern that I just showed you on the sheet. And I'm going 1st, 2nd, 3rd. That is string 4 fret 4, and that is A, B, C sharp. The 4th is D, and the 5th. The 5th is at string 4 fret 7. So that is, I said, to play a power chord, you're playing the 1st and the 5th. So here's the 1st, string 6 fret 5, and here's the 5th. You just saw me do it, you just heard me do it, it's not magic. There's the 5th. So when I play those two notes together, I have a power chord. Now it's called a power chord. Interestingly enough, it's not really a chord. It's an interval in music, but power, it's just called a power chord because it's played so often. It's only 2 notes, and to have a chord of any kind, you need at least 3 notes. So it's a power interval, really, but it's always called a power chord. And it sounds very much like a full-on A chord. There's an A chord full-on, has the A, C sharp and E in it. This has no C sharp in it. And as we get further along, you realize that that's kind of the basis of rhythm and blues, because that 3rd is the only note that determines whether a chord is major or minor. Just hold that in your, for future lessons. So if I want to play this G to C to D, I can play it this way. And you can play, all kinds of, you can fool around with the power chords. If you go from an A to a G to an F, you have things like there must be some kind of way out of here, said the joker to the thief. You can fool around and have a lot of fun with that. You'll actually hear a lot of different songs and different uses of power chords. They're generally played with strings 6, 5, and 4, but we're keeping it simple here for you, and you still get a good product. If you use that G, C, and D, you can still do a lot of songs. You'll hear them come out. Just the 1st, 4th, and 5th. Following this, play the chords for the 1st, 4th, and 5th. And she was just 17. You know what I mean. And the way she looked was way beyond compare. So there's a bunch of songs that go 1, 4, 5. We're down in Louisiana, close to New Orleans. We're back among the hills among the evergreens. There stood an earth cabin made of earth and wood. There lived a country boy named Johnny Bigwood, who never understood to read and write so well. He could play guitar just like a ring and a bell. Go, go, go. So, so far we're going to get into strumming, and I shouldn't have done that, but I just wanted to demonstrate, that it sounds real. It's not like, oh, this is cheap chord or something. No, it's, there's a lot of rock and roll played that way, and if you can still do that. Way down in Louisiana, close to New Orleans, back among the hills, among the evergreens, there stood. If you do it that way, it still sounds good. I don't think Chuck would have gone platinum with that song, but playing it that way. But you know, this will encourage you to play. Remember, I'm deadening these other strings. That's the real trick here, is deaden strings 1, 2, 3, and 4. You only want strings 6 and 5 playing, and you're all set. It was 20 years ago today. Sergeant Clever brought the band to play. They were going in and out of style. Yes, the power chord even existed for the Beatles. So as far back as that. So have fun with it, and I'll see you in class on Monday.